Hi folks, welcome to Connected to Nature. This is Tanis, and we are going to read Chapter 7 of The Power of Now, and it's called Portals into the Unmanifested. Going deeply into the body. Question. I can feel the energy inside my body, especially my arms and legs, but I don't seem to be able to go more deeply as you suggested earlier. Answer. Make it into a meditation. It needn't take long. 10 to 15 minutes of clock time should be sufficient. Make sure first that there are no external distractions such as telephones or people who are likely to interrupt you. Sit on a chair, but don't lean back. Keep the spine erect. Doing so will help you stay alert. Alternatively, choose your own favorite position for meditation. Make sure the body is relaxed. Close your eyes. Take a few deep breaths. Feel yourself breathing into your lower abdomen, as it were. Observe how it expands and contracts slightly with each in and out breath. Then become aware of the entire inner energy field of the body. Don't think about it, feel it. By doing this, you can reclaim consciousness from the mind. If you find it helpful, use the light visualization I described earlier. And I can read that to you really quick just so you remember what that is. If you find it easy to visualize, close your eyes. This came from Chapter 6, The Inner Body, towards the end. I'm sorry. All right, let me just quickly read this to you. If you find it easy to visualize, close your eyes and see yourself surrounded by light or immersed in a luminous substance, a sea of consciousness. Then breathe in the light. Feel the luminous substance filling your body and make it luminous also. Then gradually focus more on the feeling. You are now in your body. Don't get attached to any visual image. So that kind of explains it all. Okay, so then I'm going to read that last line and go on. By doing this, you reclaim consciousness from the mind. If you find it helpful, use the light visualization that I described earlier. When you can feel the inner body clearly as a single field of energy, let go, if possible, of any visual image, and focus exclusively on the feeling. If you can, also drop any mental image you may still have of the physical body. All that is left, then, is an all-encompassing sense of presence, or beingness, and the inner body is felt to be within the boundary. Excuse me, I did read that wrong. And the inner body is felt to be without a boundary. Then take your attention even more deeply into that feeling. Become one with it. Merge with the energy field, so that there is no longer a perceived duality of the observer and the observed, of you and your body. The distinction between inner and outer also dissolves now. There is no inner body anymore. By going deeply into the body, you have transcended the body. Stay in this realm of pure being for as long as it feels comfortable. Then become aware again of the physical body, your breathing, and physical senses, and open your eyes. Look at your surroundings for a few minutes, in a meditative way. That is, without labeling them mentally. Then continue to feel the inner body as you do so. Pause. Having access to the formless realm is truly liberating. It frees you from the bondage to form and identification with form. It is life in its undifferentiated state prior to its fragmentation into multiplicity. We may call it the unmanifested, the invisible source of all things, the being within all being. It is a realm of deep stillness and peace, but also of joy and intense aliveness. Whenever you are present, you become transparent, to some extent, to the light, the pure consciousness that emanates from this source. You also realize that the light is not separate from who you are, but it constitutes your very essence. Excuse me. The source of Qi. Question. Is the unmanifested, what in the East is called Qi, a kind of universal life energy? Answer. No, it isn't. The unmanifested is the source of Qi. Qi is the inner energy field of your body. It is the bridge between the outer, you, and the source. It lies halfway between the manifested and the world of form, and the unmanifested. Qi can be likened to a river or an energy stream. If you take the focus of your consciousness deeply into your body, you are tracing the course of the river back to its source. Qi is movement. The unmanifested is stillness. When you reach a point of absolute stillness, which is nevertheless vibrant with life, you have gone beyond the inner body and beyond Qi to the source itself, the unmanifested. Qi is a link between the unmanifested and the physical universe. So if you take your attention deeply into the inner body, you may reach this point, the singularity, where the world dissolves into the unmanifested, and the unmanifested takes on form as the energy stream of Qi, which then becomes the world. This is the point of birth and death. When your consciousness is directed outward, mind and world arise. Let me read that again. When your consciousness is directed outward, mind and world arise. When it is directed inward, it realizes its own source and returns home into the unmanifested. Then, when your consciousness comes back to the manifested world, you reassume the form identity that you temporarily relinquished. You have a name, a past, a life situation, a future, but in one essential respect, you are not the same person you were before. You will have glimpsed a reality within yourself that is not of this world, although it isn't separate from it, just as it isn't separate from you. Now let your spiritual practice be this. As you go about your life, don't give 100% of your attention to the external world and to your mind. Keep some within. I have spoken about this already. Feel the inner body, even when engaged in everyday activities, especially when engaged in relationships or when you are relating with nature. Feel the stillness deeply inside it. Keep the portal open. It is quite possible to be conscious of the unmanifested throughout your life. You feel it as a deep sense of peace somewhere in the background, a stillness that never leaves you, no matter what happens out here. You become a bridge between the unmanifested and the manifested, between God and the world. It is a state of connectedness with the source that we call enlightenment. Wonderful. Don't get the impression that the unmanifested is separate from the manifested. How could it be? It is life within every form. It is the life within every form, the inner essence of all that exists. It pervades this world. Let me explain. Excuse me. Dreamless sleep. You take a journey into the unmanifested every night when you enter the phase of sleep, dreamless sleep. You merge with the source. You draw from it the vital energy that sustains you for a while when you return to the manifested, the world of separate forms. This energy is much more vital than food. Man does not live by bread alone. But in dreamless sleep, you don't go into it consciously. Although the bodily functions are still operating, you no longer exist in that state. Can you imagine what it would be like to go into a dreamless sleep with full consciousness? It is impossible to imagine because that state has no content. The unmanifested does not liberate you until you enter it consciously. That's why Jesus did not say, the truth will make you free, but rather, you will know the truth, and the truth will make you free. This is not a conceptual truth. It is the truth of external life beyond form, which is known directly or not at all. You don't attempt to stay conscious in a dreamless sleep. It is highly unlikely that you will succeed. At most you will remain conscious during the dream phase, but not beyond that. This is called lucid dreaming, which may be interesting and fascinating, but it is not liberating. So use your inner body as a portal through which you enter the unmanifested, and keep the portal open so that you stay connected with the source at all times. It makes no difference, as far as the inner body is concerned, whether your outer physical body is old or young, frail or strong. The inner body is timeless. If you are not able to feel the inner body, Use one of the other portals although ultimately they are all one. Some I have spoken about at length already, but I will mention them briefly here. Other portals. The now can be seen as the main portal. It is the essential aspect of every other portal, including the inner body. You cannot be in your body without being intensely present in the now. Time and the manifested are as explicitly linked as are the timeless now and the unmanifested. When you dissolve psychological time through intense present moment awareness, you become conscious of the unmanifested both directly and indirectly. Directly, you feel it as a radiance and power of your conscious presence. No content, that just presence. Indirectly, you are aware of the unmanifested in and through the sensory realm. In other words, you feel the God essence in every creature, every flower, every stone, and you realize all that is holy. This is why Jesus, speaking entirely from the essence of Christ's identity, says in the Gospel of Thomas, "Split a piece of wood, I am there. Lift up a stone, and you will find me there." Another portal to the unmanifested is created through the cessation of thinking. This can start with a very simple thing, such as taking one conscious breath or looking into a state of intense alertness at a flower, so there is no mental commentary running at the same time. There may be many ways to create a gap in that incessant stream of thought. This is what meditation is all about. Thought is part of the realm of the manifested. Continuous mind activity keeps you imprisoned in that world of form and becomes the opaque screen that prevents you from becoming conscious of the unmanifested, conscious of the formless and timeless God essence in yourself and in all things and all creatures. When you are intensely present, you don't need to be concerned about there's that word again. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. I apologize. When you are intensely present, you don't need to be concerned about the cessation of thinking. Of course, because the mind then stops automatically. That's why I said the now is an essential aspect of every other portal. Surrender, the letting go of mental emotion resistance to what is, also becomes a portal into the unmanifested. The reason for this is simple. Inner resistance cuts you off from other people, from yourself, from the world around you. It strengthens the feeling of separateness on which the ego depends for its survival. The stronger the feeling of separateness, the more you are bound to the manifested, to the world of separate forms. The more you are bound to the world of form, the harder and more impenetrable your form identity becomes. The portal is closed, and you are cut off from the inner dimension, the dimension of depth. The state of inner surrender from your form identity softens and becomes somewhat transparent, as it were, so the unmanifested can shine through you. It's up to you to open the portal into your life that gives you conscious access to the unmanifested. Get in touch with the energy field of your body, of your inner body, and be intensely present. Disidentified from the mind, surrender to what is. These are all portals you can use, but you only need to use one. Question: surely love must also be one of these portals? Answer: no, it isn't. As soon as one of the portals is open, love is present in you as the feeling realization of oneness. Love isn't a portal. It's what comes through the portal into this world. As long as you are completely trapped in your form identity, there can be no love. Your task is not to search for love, but to find the portal through which love can enter. Silence. Question: are there any other portals apart from those you just mentioned? Answer: yes, there are. The unmanifested is not separate from the manifested. It pervades this world, but it is also well disguised that almost everybody misses it completely. If you know where to look, you'll find it everywhere. A portal opens every moment. A portal opens up every moment. Do you hear the dog barking in the distance, or the car passing by? Listen carefully. Can you feel the presence of the unmanifested in that? You can't? Look for it in the silence out of which the sound comes, into which they return. Let me read that again. Look for it in the silence out of which the sound comes, and into which they return. Pay more attention to the silence than to the sounds. Pay attention to the outer silence. Silence creates inner silence. The mind becomes still. A portal is opening up. Every sound is born out of silence, dies back into silence, and during its lifespan is surrounded by silence. Silence enables the sound to be. It is an intrinsic part of the unmanifested part of every sound, every musical note, every song, every word. The unmanifested is present in this world as silence. This is why it has been said that nothing in this world is so like God as silence. All you have to do is pay attention to it. Even during a conversation, become conscious of the gaps between words, of brief silent intervals between sentences. As you do that, the dimension of stillness grows within you. You cannot pay attention to silence without simultaneously becoming still within. Silence without, stillness within. You have entered the unmanifested. Space. Just as sound can't exist without silence, nothing can exist without no thing, without the empty space that enables it to be. Every physical object or body that has come out of nothing, is surrounded by nothing, and will eventually return to nothing. Not only that, but even inside every physical body, there is far more nothing than something. Physicists tell us that the solidarity of matter is an illusion. Even seemingly solid matter, including your physical body, is nearly 100% empty space. So vast are the distances between the atoms compared to their size. What is more, even inside every atom, there is mostly empty space. What is left is more like a vibrational frequency, the particles of solid matter, and more like a musical note. Buddhists have known that for over 2,500 years. Form is emptiness, emptiness is form, states the Heart Sutra, one of the best-known Buddhist texts. Sutra, S-U-T-R-A, Heart Sutra. Okay? One of the best-known ancient Buddhist texts. The essence of all things is emptiness. The unmanifested is not only present in the world of silence, it also prevails in the entire physical universe as space, form, within and without. This is just as easy to miss as silence. Everybody pays attention to the things in space, but who pays attention to space itself? Question. You seem to be implying that emptiness or nothing is not just nothing, that there is some mysterious quality to it. What is this nothing? Answer. You cannot ask such a question. Your mind is trying to make nothing into something. The moment you make it into something, you have missed it. Nothing, space, is the appearance of the unmanifested as an externalized phenomenon, in a sense, perceived world. That's about as much as one can say about it, and even that is kind of a paradox. It can become an object of knowledge. You can't do a PhD on nothing. When scientists study space, they usually make it into something and thereby miss its essence entirely. Not surprisingly, the latest theory is that space isn't empty at all, that it is filled with some substance. Once you have a theory, it's not too hard to find evidence to sustain it, at least until some other theory comes along. Nothing can only become a portal into the unmanifested for you if you don't try to grasp or understand it. Question: isn't that what we are doing here? Answer: not at all. I'm giving you pointers to show you how you can bring the dimension of the unmanifested into your life. We are not trying to understand it. There is nothing to understand. Space has no existence. To exist literally means to stand out. You cannot understand space because it doesn't stand out. Although in itself it has no essence, it enables everything to exist, everything else to exist. Silence has no existence either, nor does the unmanifested. So what happens if you withdraw attention from the objects in space and become aware of the space itself? What is the essence of this room? The furniture, pictures, and so on are in the room, but they are not the room. The floor, walls, and the ceiling define the boundary of the room, but they are not the room either. So what is the essence of the room? Space, of course, empty space. There would be no room without it. Since space is nothing, we can say that what is not there is more important than what is there. So become aware of the space that is around you. Don't think about it. Feel it, as it were. Pay attention to nothing. As you do that, a shift in consciousness takes place inside you. Here's why. The inner equivalent to objects of space, such as furniture, walls, and so on, are your mind objects. Thoughts, emotions, and other objects of the senses. And the inner equivalent of the space is the consciousness that enables your mind objects to be, just as space allows all things to be. So, if you withdraw your attention from things, objects in space, you automatically withdraw your attention from the mind objects as well. In other words, you cannot think and be aware of the space, or of silence, for that matter. By becoming aware of the empty space around you, you simultaneously become aware of the space of no mind, of pure consciousness, the unmanifested. This is how the contemplation of space can become a portal for you. Space and silence are two aspects of the same thing, the same no thing. They are an externalization of inner space and inner silence, which is stillness, the infinitely created womb of all existence. Most humans are completely unconscious of this dimension. There is no inner space, no stillness. They are out of balance. In other words, they know the world, or they think they do, but they don't know God. They identify exclusively with their own physical and psychological form and consciousness of essence. And because every form is highly unstable, they live in fear. This fear causes a deep misconception of themselves and of other humans, a distortion in their vision of the world. If some cosmic compulsion brought about an end of our world, the unmanifested would remain totally unaffected by this. A Course of Miracles expresses this truth poignantly. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. If you remain in conscious connection with the unmanifested, you value, love, and deeply respect the manifested and every form life in it as an expression of the one life beyond form. You also know that every form is designed to dissolve again, and that the ultimate nothing out there matters all that much. You have overcome the world. In the words of Jesus, or as the Buddha put it, you have crossed over to the other shore. True nature of space and time. The true nature of space and time. Now consider this. If there were nothing but silence, it wouldn't exist for you. You wouldn't know what it is. Only when sound appears does silence come into being. Similarly, if there were only space, without any objects in space, it wouldn't exist for you. Imagine yourself as a point of consciousness floating into the vastness of space. No stars, no galaxies, just emptiness. Suddenly, space wouldn't be vast anymore. It would not be there at all. There would be no speed, no movement from here to there. At least 2 points of reference are needed for distance and space to come into being. Space comes into being the moment the one becomes two, and as two become then 10,000, as Lao Tzu calls the manifested world, space becomes more and vast, becomes more and more vast. The world and space arise simultaneously. Nothing could be without space, yet space is nothing. Before the universe came into being, before the Big Bang, if you like, there wasn't a vast empty space waiting to be filled. There was no space, as there was no thing. There was only the unmanifested, the one. When the one became the 10,000 things, suddenly space seemed to be there and enabled the many to be. Where did it come from? Was it created by God to accommodate the universe? Of course not. Space is no thing, so it was never created. Go out on a clear night and look up at the sky. The thousands of stars you can see with the naked eye are no more than an infinitesimal fraction of what there is. Over 100 billion galaxies can already be detected with the most powerful telescopes, each galaxy an island universe with billions of stars. Yet what is even more awe-inspiring is the infinite of space itself, the depth and stillness that allows all of the magnificence to be. Nothing could be more awe-inspiring and majestic than an inconceivable vastness and stillness of space. And yet what is it? Emptiness, vast emptiness. What appears to us as space in our universe perceived through the mind and the senses is the unmanifested itself, eternalized. Is the unmanifested itself, eternalized. It is the body of God. Sorry, I need to pause 1 second. And the greatest miracle to this, that stillness and vastness that enables the universe to be, is not just out there in space. It is also within you. When you are utterly and totally present, you encounter as still inner space and no mind. Within you, it is vast in depth, not in extension. Spatial extension is ultimately a misperception of infinite depth, an attribute of the one transcendental reality. Question. According to Einstein, space and time are not separate. I don't really understand it, but I think he is saying that time is the fourth dimension of space. He calls it the space-time continuum. Answer. Yes, what you perceive externally as space and time are ultimately illusionary, but they contain a core of truth. They are the two essential attributes of God. Infinity and eternity, perceived as if they had an external existence. Oh my goodness, I'm sorry. They are the two essential attributes of God. Infinite and eternity, perceived as if they had an external essence outside you. Within you, both space and time have an inner equivalent that reveals their true nature as well as your own. Whereas space is still, infinitely deep realm of no mind, the inner equivalent of time is presence, awareness of the eternal now. Remember, there is no distinction between them. When space and time are realized as the unmanifested, no mind and presence. External space and time continue to exist for you, but they become much less important. The world, too, continues to exist for you, but it will not blind you anymore. Hence, the ultimate purpose of the world lies not within the world, but in transcendence of the world. Just as you would not be conscious of space if there were no objects in space, the world is indeed for the unmanifested to be realized. You may have heard the Buddha saying, "If there were no illusions, there would be no enlightenment." It is through the world, and ultimately through you, that the unmanifested knows itself. You are here to enable the divine purpose of the universe to unfold. That is how important you are. Conscious death. Apart from dreamless sleep, which I mentioned already, there is one other involuntary portal. It opens up briefly at the time of physical death. Even if you have missed all the opportunities for spiritual realization during your lifetime, one last portal will open up for you immediately after the body has died. There are countless accounts of people who have a visual impression of this portal as a radiant light, and then returned form what is commonly known as a near-death experience. Many of them also spoke of a sense of blissful serenity and deep peace. In the Tibetan Book of the Dead, it is described as a luminous splendor of the colorless light of emptiness, which is to say, your own true self. This portal opens up only very briefly, and unless you have already encountered the dimension of the unmanifested in your lifetime, you will likely miss it. Most people carry too much residual resistance, too much fear, too much attachment to sensory experience, too much identification with the manifested world. So they see the portal, turn away in fear, and then lose the consciousness. Most of what happens after this is involuntary and automatic. Eventually, there will be another round of birth and death. Their presence wasn't strong enough yet for conscious immortality. Question. So going through this portal does not mean annihilation. Answer. As with all other portals, your radiant true nature remains, but not the personality. In any case, whatever is real or of true value in your personality is your true nature shining through. This is never lost. Nothing that is of value, nothing that is real, is ever lost. Approaching death, and death itself, the dissolution of the physical form, is always a great opportunity for spiritual realization. The opportunity is tragically missed most of the time, since we live in a culture that is almost totally ignorant of death, as it is almost totally ignorant of anything that truly matters. The portal is a portal of death, the death of the false self. When you go through it, you cease to derive your identity from the psychological mind-made form. You then realize that death is an illusion. Just as your identification with form was an illusion, the end of illusion, is that death is. The end of illusion, that's all that death is. Okay. The end of illusion is all that death is. It is painful only as long as you cling to the illusion. And that is the end of chapter 7. The next one is chapter 8, Enlightened Relationships. And let's see what that entails. Okay. Enter the now from wherever you are. Love-hate relationships. Addiction to the search for wholeness. The addictive to enlightened relationships. I'm sorry. From addictive to enlightened relationships. Relationships is spiritual practice. Why women are closer to enlightenment. Dissolving the collective female pain body. Give up the relationship with yourself. Sounds great. Okay, I'll be back in a minute to read chapter 8. Thank you.